without the text.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'd like to apologize for being so late, especially since we're going to be honoring some people who worked extremely hard for us. So without further ado, Renee, I think you have the floor.
Hello. Can everyone hear me? Good? Okay. Good evening, everyone. To President Lumia, Vice President Kellen, and the members of the Board of Education, I'd like to thank you for granting me the opportunity to stand before you this evening to recognize 37 members of our staff who have provided 25 years of dedicated service to our students, our staff, and to the Wappingers community. I think 37 warrants a round of applause. Before we proceed, I would just like to take a moment to say thank you to Ms. Pedro, our secretary to the superintendent and our district clerk, in helping to coordinate the ceremony, and to the members of our human resources team for helping to gather the information for this evening and assisting with the invitations and all of their efforts in putting this together. Without further ado, we'll be recognizing 37 staff members, and what we will do is when we call your name, I'm going to ask that you come forward here to the right side of the stage. Assistant Superintendent Crandall is here with me to help hand out your pins. And then Board of Education members, if you'd like to stand and congratulate our recipients as they walk through. So unfortunately, all of our recipients were not able to be here with us this evening, but I thought it important to certainly recognize them. So I'll call out their names, and when your name is called, please come on up to the stage. And it's in alphabetical order by last names to give you a clue as when you'll be called. So we're starting off with Michael Anderson, Assistant Principal at Wappingers Junior High. Miriam Bautista, Occupational Therapist at Evans Elementary. Mary Ellen Bova, English teacher, John Jay. Jane Cerrone, grade 3 teacher, Gayhead. Elena Champagne, health teacher, Royce Ketchum. Deborah Ciancio, bus driver, Wappingers Junior High Garage. Raymond Chase, bus monitor, Wappingers High Junior Garage. Jennifer Cummings, health teacher, John Jay. Beth Ann D'Arcy, special education teacher, Kinry. Sarah DeLuise, cook manager, Van Wyck Junior High School. Gloria Denardi, social worker, Royce Ketchum. Diane D. DeCera, special education teacher, John Jay. Bonnie Hackinson, cook manager, Gayhead. John Hobart, library media specialist, Evans Elementary. Kathleen Howard, grade 3 teacher, Brinkerhoff. Celeste Jones, school psychologist, Wappingers Junior High. Brian LaSousa, 4th grade teacher, Brinkerhoff. Penelope LaFever, 3rd grade teacher, Gayhead. Is Penelope with us this evening? Come on.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for everything you've done, especially the last 2 years. Thank you. Thank you.
To continue on, Helga McKenzie, library clerk, Brinkerhoff. Kimberly Mahusky, grade 5 teacher, Fishkill Elementary. Caitlin McCabe, 6th grade teacher, Oak Grove. Joanne Oker, bus driver, Van Wyck Garage.
Thank you for everything.
Nancy Pickering, bus driver, Wappingers Junior High Garage. Jude Raphael, bus driver, Wappingers Junior High
Take your time. Take your time.
Here too, okay, on the stage. How are you? Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Hi, how are you?
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
everything you do.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, look
Thank you.
at
Can you see if there's anybody else here? I don't think they can, but.
Thank you.
This is how they have it.
Garage. Lori Riley, assistant principal, John Jay High School.
Thank you, Mrs. Ryan.
All right, thanks, sir.
I know, by 5 o'clock in the morning, I'm gonna rally.
Watch your steps.
Congratulations, appreciate all your help this year.
Kate Rogers, bus driver, Wappingers Junior High Garage. Michelle Ross, school psychologist.
So I didn't do that right. Sorry. Thank you so much.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Catherine Smith, 2nd grade teacher, Evans Elementary. Jennifer Tao, special education teacher, Wappingers Junior High. James Trainer, music teacher, Royce Ketchum. Ellen Vitolo, teaching assistant, Fishkill Elementary. Jenny Ward, art teacher, Vassar Road.
Congratulations. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mrs. Wood. Thank you. 25 more.
Robert Webb, social studies teacher, Royce Ketchum. Allison Wright, special education teacher, Fishkill Plains. Melissa Wyan, English teacher, Wappingers Junior High. Melissa Zier, physical education teacher, Wappingers Junior High. And last but certainly not least, Joanne Zebrin, account clerk typist, Fishkill Plains Garage. As this concludes our ceremony, I want to again express a big, heartfelt thank you and our tremendous gratitude to all of our 25-year service award recipients for your hard work, your dedication, and all that you have done for our students, our staff, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Director Harris. Again, on behalf of the entire district office senior staff, I would like to thank all of those for 25 years of great service. We could not do it without you. As many of you may know, this ceremony in the past has been held in January, and hopefully next year will not resemble this year, and we will be having this ceremony in January. We do realize that this is a very, very busy time of year, so I want to thank all of the individuals who came this evening to celebrate 25 years of service, which is a tremendous accomplishment. I also believe that I need to recognize someone who happens to be near the rear of the auditorium, and that is Wappingers Junior High School Principal Terrence Thompson, who was awarded the 2020 New York State School Administrator of the Year by the New York State Library Association. Can we give him a round of applause? Well earned, well deserved. The reason that we're doing the recognition this year as opposed to last year or in 2020, obviously due to the COVID pandemic, and we celebrate with Principal Thompson as he recently received the award a couple of weeks ago. And again, Principal Thompson, thank you for your leadership. Congratulations.
So those who have worked for the district for 25 years, I hope you have worked for the district another 25 years. Thank you for the service. 5.01, motion to open public hearing on the code of conduct.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby open the public hearing on the Code of Conduct at this time.
5.02, presentation of the code of conduct. Darren?
Motion to accept. Thank you. Second, 5.1, Keith Odoms. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Maria.
Good evening, thank you. Good evening, does that work? It will, I just got a mirror. No, I'm sorry about the mic. Is that loud enough? Kind of? I'll turn it up. Okay, so good evening. This is an annual process where we review the draft next following year code of conduct. So we're looking at the 2022-23 code of conduct for review. It's been posted online for a couple of weeks now, and we posted all the way through the 21st of June. So far, there's been no comments from the public directly towards what was been posted online. There are a number of small changes and one change that has some significance with regards to cell phones, electronic devices. The first couple small changes you would find on pages 7, as well as what would be covered on page 22. In both those pages in the 2021-22 Code of Conduct, there was language about what to do in a pandemic type situation. New York State has required that all pandemic planning language be put into every district-wide safety plan. So this language has been in place since March of 2021. So it was not necessary to have this language at all in the Code of Conduct as it's covered in our district-wide safety plan. There was, in pages 7 through 10, there was some minor updates to language about positive behaviors that specifically addressed PBIS, which is positive behavior intervention systems. And we just sort of gave it a little bit more of a softer language to start off the sentences in each one. There's no actual substantive changes besides that. On page 13 is our section on cell phone and electronic device usage. We reworded parts of that section just to improve readability and created sections based on academic grade levels. And then we also are recommending, we had it reviewed by the district's policy committee as well, amended the language for grades 9 through 12 to allow that cell phones may be permitted at the discretion of high school administration in the cafeteria, but at no other locations. That was through discussion with building administrators as well. The last change in our code of conduct was on page 31. We added an infraction, threatening student physical or verbal. In the current code of conduct, there was threatening staff, physical or verbal. And so what we noticed that there was a number of times when it just wouldn't fit into a better category. It was really a student threatening another student as opposed to a staff member. So it was an infraction that we added at the request of building administration, and it was pretty straightforward for that. That's all of the actual changes that we're proposing for the draft 2022-23 Code of Conduct. Does anyone have any questions? No? And then another
if I can just make a statement, I'd like to thank you. I feel that these changes are necessary. As we've said many times, the safety and security of our students and staff is our top priority. So we continue to look at our safety plans and our codes of conduct, and where we have the ability to make our schools safer, we will certainly act in that manner. So Mr. Lokima, I'd like to thank you and the work of the committee for addressing those concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would too like to thank the committee and as well as the policy committee as well, and just helping in the revisions. I think it was very helpful. The other part, an annual process, is to review any changes to the attendance policy. I'm happy to say that there were none. There's no recommended changes for 22-23. So essentially, this concludes my presentation of changes for these two policies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Darren. 5.03, community input on the code of conduct. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes if possible. Does anybody from the community would like to make comments on the code of conduct? If you do, please come forward. For everybody's benefit, I'd like to thank the students from Van Wyck who did make some comments. Hopefully all the board members have the ability to read what they thought about the changes being made and their recommendations. So please take a look at that, all right? Anybody? All right. Motion. Is she coming?
No.
5.04. Oh. 5.04, motion to close public hearing and resume the board meeting.
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby close the public hearing and resume the board meeting.
Motion.
Second.
Second, Marie, all in favor? Unanimous. 6.01, public comment on agenda items. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to listen to public comment. Although state law does not require to hold a public comment period, we have chosen to do so because we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues. The board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a debate or dialogue. Please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns and questions tonight. We take your comments and questions seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be. Any question from the public should be submitted to the users of the public comment form, which may be obtained online or at the desk with the district clerk. We will have the proper staff member get back to you as appropriate. I also want to point out that under state and federal law, we are unable to address any comments or questions about specific students or school personnel. We would ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. A total of 30 minutes at the beginning of each board meeting is set aside to allow the public comment on agenda items only. Public comments at the beginning of the meeting is limited only to those items on the agenda. A person who wishes to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting are asked to provide their name and a specific agenda item about which they would want to speak. Individual comments on agenda items live 3 minutes and are welcomed. If you wish to address items related to our school district which are not on tonight's agenda, another comment period is provided at the end of the meeting for that purpose. In the interest of civility and respect for different points of view, clapping, booing, or any disturbance or disruption during either public comment period is not permitted. At this time, please, if anybody has a comment on any agenda items, come forward. We'll welcome them.
Good evening. My name is Darylyn Brennan, and I'm a resident of Wappingers Falls, and I have 2 children in the Wappingers School District, a 3rd grader and a 7th grader. And I'm here in response to the email that was sent out on June 1st in regards to a letter that went out requesting a student resource officer or security resource officer in every school in the district. That would be 15 at an estimated cost of $100,000 between salary and benefits. To me, this was a reactionary knee-jerk response that is basically trying to treat the symptom and not treat the actual problem. You know, I'm a resident of Wappingers by choice. I work in Hamden, Connecticut, so it would be much easier to work closer to my work, but because of the good instruction my children have received here, I have a child that gets services as well as a child that's in the honors program. So I truly appreciate the support that both my children get. I have served on a grant committee where we harden schools and use those funds from New York State to take care of some of the best practices that are recommended. I was very disappointed that that was not sent out to the parents and community, letting people know and ratcheting down the emotions of these terrible tragedies that are happening around us. I personally would rather see this $1.5 million spent on mental health, extra counselors, extra reading resource officers where we can intervene early on so children don't fail and don't become alienated as they move on and drop out and feel, you know, disconnected from their communities. As a member of the community, I feel that we all need to be better about reaching out to our neighbors and giving them support in times that are difficult. You know, there's common threads here, and we need to do the work to catch these children that are, you know, falling into this black hole and turning around and doing monstrous things. So I don't feel that this is a proper expenditure. Schools that have student resource or security resource officers in them have 3.5 times the amount of arrests of these children in the schools, creating a record, creating a student to prison pipeline, dropout rates go up. I really think it would be a disservice, and I just think it's an emotional response to a problem that's much bigger than just having a policeman in the school or student security resource officer, whatever you want to call it. You know, schools are supposed to be places of enlightenment, not incarceration. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Good evening. Oh, that's loud. I'm Allison Conti, a parent of WCSD and a special ed and special needs advocate in the district and others. I want to just preface that I thank all of you for your work on committees and being grateful to work on a couple of them. I know the amount of time and dedication goes into it. The timing of her comments are ironic. I wanted to thank for the increase we do have in our mental health and service providers in our most recent budget. I know we have something, our Handle with Care, which we do use to check for the kids that are more quiet and need to assess so they can be sent to those services, even if they're not obviously disruptive or emotional or have behavioral problems. In response to respectfully, the 1.5 million that it would cost, I do want to thank, and I know how quick you all work in LXA because it was a hustle, I was on it, the letter that you're proposing tonight to be presented to the board to request federal funding for the SROs, that I personally don't think it can hurt us to have more safety for our children than we do have, combined with the efforts to increase our mental health providers and use our handle care training providers to help those children that don't stand out but do need interventions before something like this escalates. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. 7.01. Or excuse me, it could be 6.02. Communications announcements received by the Board of Education. Peggy?
Yes. Mr. Lumia and I had the opportunity to attend the John Jay 50th anniversary performance at John Jay, where they highlighted the talent that not only the current talent at John Jay, but a number of the people who graduated from there. Congratulations to John Jay on their 50th anniversary. We also I also, with a number of the other people at the board here, attended the business honors inductions at RCK and the music honors also at RCK. And that was congratulations to all our hardworking students and for very deserved honors. Thank you.
John?
Thank you, President Lumia. I was honored to attend with many people across the district, but I think most importantly, our students for the Memorial Day ceremonies at Van Wyck, at Royce Ketchum, and at John Jay. The students were involved, as were members of local American Legion posts. It was a very moving ceremony, and the students did an outstanding job, and I was honored to be there as a part of that. And I see a bunch of other people up here nodding their heads. I'd like to mention, but off the top of my head, I may fail to mention all of them, so I'll just say that we had numerous athletics teams in the district be recognized for their scholarship as well as their participation in athletics. So congratulations to numerous John Jay teams and numerous Royce Ketchum teams, including, and I'm going to single one out, our Section 1 championship baseball team, who also won a game in the regionals, the very first level of the state championship tournament. Unfortunately, they came up short over the weekend, but we really shouldn't focus on that. They had an outstanding season. And I'll just mention that in my time, going back 45 years, the Ketchum baseball team has an outstanding record of achievement across 4.5 decades. And it was great to see they're supporting the current coaching staff led by Pat Neely and the student athletes. The first baseball coach that I remember from Ketchum, Skip Rockcamp, who went on to become an administrator in the district, they're supporting the team at both of those games. So 4.5 decades of excellence, including a state championship and the reigning Section 1 AA champions and outstanding student athletes. The Ketchum baseball team I want to make mention of. Thank you.
I was going to say that game Saturday night, even though we didn't take that game, was a nail biter. Superintendent Mr. Zip and I were sitting there cheering them on, and there was one inning right at the end. It was really close, but I have to say the varsity baseball team did an amazing job at RCK. Also, the same day, track and field also was very victorious. I also attended the Tri-M here at RCK, but that I'd like to also point out that John Jay was part of the Tri-M. It is one of the few honor societies that is joint, and I want to congratulate both schools for the amazing job that those kids are doing, and they sounded superb. The concert afterwards at the end was phenomenal. The Business Honor Society, I was at all 3 Memorial Day presentations, and I'd also like to include, besides the students, the staff, the local American Legions, I'd also like to acknowledge that the United States Marine Corps was here also as well for the flag raising here at RCK.
Anyone else? I guess I'm the last one, so I'm going to repeat a great deal of what has been said. But I'm just a couple more things. Congratulations to the 80 students from RCK and John Jay who were inducted in the Tri-M Music Honor Society. In fact, I almost sang a song doing it, but Marie told me not to, so I did it. Congratulations to 29. Congratulations to 9 students, RCK business students, who were inducted into the National Business Honor Society. Congratulations to all RCK students who were inducted into the National Honor Society, RCK. On May 25th, both the superintendent, the 3 principals from high schools, and I were invited to attend a breakfast in Rhinebeck to honor all the valedictorians and salutatorians in all area districts. Congratulations to all the students. I want to thank both high schools as well as my invite principals for inviting the Board of Education to participate in the Memorial Day ceremony. Now, I'm going to mention all the teams that Mr. Morgan stated that were scholars. The baseball team, both RCK and John Jay baseball team, softball teams, girls and boys, track, boys and girls, track and field, golf, boys and girls, as well as tennis. And again, congratulations to the excellent season for the baseball team. It was exciting. I wish I could have gone to the game, but I didn't. So with that being said, let's go on to the next topic, which is 7.01, school board, school lunch presentation. Matthew. Dr. Bonk wants to say a few congratulatory remarks. So please, Dr. Bonk, you got the floor.
Thank you, President Lumia. I also would like to commend the Ketchum baseball team, Coach Mealy, and the entire coaching staff for a phenomenal year. We're very, very proud of them. And what a great group of kids as well. I've had an opportunity to meet some of them, and I can't say enough about their character, as well as their determination on the athletic field. And as was mentioned, not only are our athletes successful in the fields of athletics, they're also very successful in the classroom. So I want to commend everybody on that. I do want to make it.
Dr. Bonk, could I
Yes.
just interrupt you for a moment?
Sure.
Because I would have gotten it wrong. John read off all of those teams, but they're recognized at the Section 1 level or at the county level?
Section 1 through New York State Physical Education Association.
So it's not just like we're saying, oh, they were good student athletes. They're
Correct.
recognized
Throughout New York State.
multiple counties. Thank
That's
you.
correct. Thank you, Trustee Morgan. I would like to take an opportunity to speak a little bit about school safety. For those of you who may not be aware, we have added 11 positions over the last 2 years in mental health to the tune of about $1.5 million. We have increased social workers, guidance counselors at all levels, and we'll continue to do that at the elementary level. And I do believe that they are key to working with our youth to identify any mental health issues that they may have and provide them with what they need based on the pandemic. But I also feel that employed as a superintendent of schools to advocate for positions that I feel are in the best interest of our students. And I have to be honest, I believe that a school resource officer is needed in every school building. If you take a look at the Vader form that is sent to New York State, you can look up the number of arrests that occur in our schools. Both of our high schools have school resource officers, They are there to help. They are there to develop positive relationships. They are there as a go-to person. They are not there to arrest kids. They go through a specific training program just so that they're able to participate as a school resource officer. So I think it's important that the community is aware of exactly what I believe we need and what we're looking for in some of the most challenging times that I think that we've all seen. And we could certainly have conversations as to what might be better and what may not be better. But I think we need something immediate. And one of the things that can be done rather quickly, and I've asked the federal government for this, is to provide the funding to the local school districts to allow them to do that. I don't believe it should be based on whether or not a school district has the money to pay for school safety. So we have addressed the mental health component, and I believe now it's proper to address the school resource officer component, in which our current budget that was just passed, we did add 2 school resource officers at our junior high school. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Monk. And with that, 7.01, school lunch presentation. Matthew?
Yeah, board, if you can't see, feel free to. You probably can't see. You guys have eyes in the back of your head.
Thank you.
Hello, how you doing? There we go. The first thing I'd like to say is that I need to thank my team, my entire food service staff, my entire office staff, my couriers, and especially my assistant, Melissa Jones, for going the extra mile this year. By the end of the year, we're projecting well over 1 million meals. That's where the confetti and balloons should come down. But it's been a crazy couple of years. It's nice to be here and present at least a little good news. So here is our budget presentation. We're going to try to keep it short. There we go. We are compliant with all our meals and our a la carte items with the USDA, which is a great thing. We have reimbursable meals in all 15 of our buildings, breakfast and lunch. This year was an awesome year because we got the waiver that was able to give all students the opportunity for free breakfast and lunch. And a lot of students took advantage of this. We have a la carte breakfast menu items available in 14 schools for some choices. We're a member of the Wellness Committee, and we try to meet all the needs of the committee. It was some challenges this year, but we were able to provide different delivery systems. It's been a long year, and we went delivering in some schools and other opportunities. Wrong way. How do we increase participation? This year, we didn't really need to increase participation. You know that merry-go-round thing where the kids in the old days would hold on? That's what the whole food service staff is. We're holding on. But we definitely like to promote breakfast because it is always an untapped thing, and it's definitely this year we doubled participation in breakfast easily. We're always trying to bring in favorite lunch items, and yes, we do get some suggestions, and if we can do it, we definitely try. We were trying to provide safe meals during COVID, and it was hard navigation, but the team really came together. Breakfast for lunch, just a very popular thing for the students, and they really like it, so we tried to offer it at least a few times a month at least. Sale of popular a la carte items in the schools when possible. This year was very challenging, so some schools didn't have all the a la carte items that we wanted. We're hoping that next year gets better. And again, an amazing food service staff team that accommodated ever-changing needs, and things could change. You know, one way today, a new way tomorrow, and a new way the next day. So the team was just really great
with going with the flow and getting the job done. As I say, challenges, labor costs and participation is always a challenge. It was a challenge before I got here. It's a challenge this year, next year. Aging infrastructure. We're all aging. The infrastructure is aging. We're 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. Hopefully we make another couple steps forward next year. Labor, supplies, cost of goods. Oh my Lord, who doesn't know going to the supermarket what the cost of goods are doing, right? Meeting the requirements of the USDA is always a challenge. Evaluating the meals and the use of the commodities, wellness regulations, delivery to the classrooms when needed, offer versus suits, serve to all the students. Got a little messed up where we had to give like bags of everything to all the students in some schools because they couldn't have a choice, so it was definitely a challenge. Staff shortages, we've been, we started the year very short, we got some, we lost some, then people were like, I'm gonna retire, and then more people said, I'm retiring, and I'm retiring. Storage needs with increased participation, I mean, it was just running out of room in the warehouse, running out of room in the schools. No one thinks about it, but these schools only have a certain amount of space. And if you're normally doing 25, 30% participation, and then you're doing 50, 60%, that's a lot of food that's going in there. Food waste, always a problem, but those are the things that we just have to deal with. Nationwide shortages. I mean, me and my assistant were working every day trying to get the simplest things, like we can't get cereal, and just chicken and every aspect of food was hard to get. It was like applesauce, how can that be hard to get? Inconsistent deliveries. I mean, first it was we couldn't get the food, then the companies didn't have the drivers, and then COVID, and then just the prices. We adapting from hybrid to regular, increased participation. Then New York State with the styrofoam ban, and I'm all about environmental, but I don't know, it wasn't the best time to ban styrofoam. He was like, all right, so now a styrofoam tray costs half a penny, but you can get these trays that cost a quarter. The couriers, our couriers deliver food to all the schools every day. With increased participation, their vans were overflowing, and that's just the nature of the business. It's like, it's a good problem to have, but for the people delivering the food, they're like, oh my, it was overwhelming, and they did a great job in getting the job done. Comparisons, a lot of the districts around for a couple years have had free meals and haven't had their prices adjusted. We were always in the midst of the region in terms of prices, and we still are. The other districts have not really done any kind of price comparison, but things are going up. Costs are going up. I mean, so we're going to need to nudge up the meal rate because we just have to keep up with what the current values are. Sure.
So sorry, just to step in. The calculation that the district utilizes is from the National School Lunch Program. And that calculation has not been released yet as well. So that is another reason why districts around us are not committing to any price changes at this point in time. However, we have a presentation to do. We have to do an estimate based on what we thought was best, and therefore these increases reflect that. So these prices are from 2018-19. That are shown up there with the exception of Wappingers, okay? Just to try to make that a little bit clearer. It's not like we're jumping out on a ledge here, but we're trying to be conservative in our estimates as we move forward. Sorry.
And again, so just trying to, since we're a profit and loss, we need to keep that balance of where we need to be. And I'm sure that the other districts will follow suit, and the government will probably follow suit also. Financial summary,
I mean, it's really nice to have something where you're like, I actually surpassed my budget revenue. That's a fun thing to say. So we are projecting that we will meet the budget revenue. Last year, we were in that ugly red with the profit and loss. The red is usually loss. And this year, we are actually going to, with the amazing amount of participation, we are going to meet the goals that we needed to. And it's a great thing. So that waiver really worked out, and we are going to hopefully start a new, getting back on track and going forward. It was really a good showing. Historical numbers, just historical numbers, what we did, surpassing anything that I can have imagined. As I said, we're gonna be going over 1 million meals, and it was a great accomplishment. And I really look forward to hopefully getting back to more normalcy. The prices for the goods and services, I'm not sure if they're gonna cooperate, but I'm hoping to get back to trying to give back to the students and more options again. So we can only hope for a better year next year in terms of options. But this year, congratulations to the whole food service team getting it done. Future plans, just as usual, vegetarian, healthy options, working with the district and the committees, and just rebuilding after a long time. There we go. Happy lunch. We had a lot of apples. You wouldn't believe how many apples we served this year. If no one has any questions, I will. I can't get. All right, here we go. I love questions.
Not so much, is it working?
Are there any questions on the front of the board? Eddie?
I already started. We were walking, sorry. I just wanted to point out, some people don't realize that the school lunch program, it has to be fully funded under its own power. So during the pandemic, we kind of went into the red, and I want to commend you for being able to pull it out of that. I went to the store today for 3 items, $300 later, locked out. I totally get it. I don't know how you're doing it for 1 million meals, and still cannot find some of the items that I normally buy. I still can't find them in the store. So I just want to congratulate you and your team on the amazing work that you guys have done. And I'm sure we're going to get back to the full a la carte next year, and I look forward to it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So the food service industry is challenged in terms of costs and expenses, as you illustrated, and you're good at balance and everything. And congrats for meeting your goal this year. What keeps you up at night that, going forward in terms of cost expenses that's going to be out of whack, that's going to really maybe prevent you from meeting your objective for next year?
Well, we've already gotten a lot of our bids for next year, and I've already had the companies come back to me and said, they've already raised the prices on some of the things we bid. So that keeps me up because it's uncertain ground, right? The commodities, we just don't know until the government actually, they give a price for commodities that I'm using, but it's it's current stuff. And so the chickens have the flu, or the beef has this, we really don't know. So it's the uncertainty. But with that being said, it's better to have had such a great year that we can actually start from getting back to the green and figure it out. I was able to utilize a lot of extra commodities next year, which I am always every day trying to get more things that are out there, that the government offered for free. So as long as they give it to me, I'm starting in a good position and getting more free stuff.
So will those contract modifications, will they kind of lean you forward to rolling it over to prices for next year, or is that something that's locked in?
The need, the need of increase in price? If something amazing happens and prices go dramatically down, we would always, we're gonna look at everything. But I mean, can I just say, like a case of applesauce, maybe last year at the bid was maybe $18, and now it would cost you about $50. So, and that's, I'm just saying applesauce. So we can only hope and, that things get better. We don't know. So, what I project, which I pulled out of my hat, it was like with the rabbit in the hat doing my budget last year. And it was like, wow, we did it, I can, with the small increase, I think it would be a good thing. I think everyone should sign on the line saying, oh, if we could do that, it's not so bad. But we'll have to see.
Eddie?
First, Mr. Flusser, I want to thank you and your entire staff. What you've gone through the last couple of years is pretty amazing. And I don't know, do you need the board to approve like an arch or something for 1 million meals served or anything like that? We could take that into consideration, or maybe an F or something like that, 1 million meals served. Moving forward, I know with some of the challenges, COVID, a couple of areas is one, with regards to how the meals are served, has there been any guideline either from the county, the state, or the federal government with how these meals have to be served? Or would we anticipate in September going back to kind of the way things were pre-COVID, where students can actually get on the cafeteria line and pick a la carte and hot meals and different things? Has any of that changed? Have you gotten any notification?
We haven't received any notification at this point of any changes.
So we're still under whatever the...
We were following the guidelines that met by building. So we had to evaluate each situation by building. Matthew then adjusted his staff as needed at each building in order to be able to accommodate whether there needed to be delivery options, et cetera. So through the summer, we'll certainly be in contact with the superintendent, any information he receives, and then we'll be able to formulate a plan better for.
Because I'm sure it just factors into cost. If kids, if the food has to be wrapped and separated, I mean, that's an additional cost, and people don't think about that. But if you're doing 1 million meals and you add an extra, 2 cents because things have to be wrapped, it does, that does add up significantly.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay.
So there are 2 additional revenues that the district was able to seek in the area of food service. First was a supply chain grant from New York State, which Matthew will be utilizing next year in the milk line, budgetary line. Additionally, we were able to utilize the COVID needs, those, they call them t-shirt bags. So the bags, for example, the pre-wrapped silverware or plasticware, that type of expense we were also be able to utilize for the ESSER and the ARPA money. So we did find opportunities in some ways to mitigate those costs related to COVID. But those funds will not always be available, and hopefully we can go back to the trade that can run through the dishwasher and get the students back into the cafeterias in all our buildings and help reduce that personnel cost as well.
And hopefully, I know the Boar's Head experiment, prior to COVID was very successful, and hopefully we can continue with those options, because I do think the kids did enjoy those particular options. So again, I just want to thank you and your staff. It's a tremendous job, over the past couple of years, and hopefully things will get a little bit back to normal, and we can go from there. So thanks again for all your efforts.
Just one last comment, Christian, Matt, you guys do a great job. And right, what Marie said, this is a self-funded program. So I don't know how you guys do it, but thank you very much for your effort. Can you make a comment?
Do they need to ask for more time? Do they need to ask for more time?
I motion for 5 minutes.
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, Board of Education.
5 minutes, I'll take 1 minute.
I appreciate that. Not even 1 minute. Director Flusser, I need to thank you and your entire department. The last 2 years have been extremely challenging, and you and your team has risen to the occasion to make sure that everyone that needed a meal got one. So a couple of years ago, when the schools were remote, the food service department was not remote. The food service department was in the schools preparing the meals and handing out the meals. I think it's important to acknowledge Director Flusser, his entire team, and our food service staff of how many employees?
It's in the range of 60 to 70.
60 to 70 employees. I would like to thank them for a tremendous job. And again, what you've been able to do financially here, absolutely fantastic. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you. 7.02, approval of the 22-23 school lunch budget.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby approve participation in the National School Lunch Program, to accept the policy statement and authorize the President of the Board of Education to sign the certificate of acceptance, and be it further resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District does hereby adopt the food service budget for the 2022-2023 school year as presented to the Board of Education and as recommended by the Superintendent of Schools.
Motion Marie, second. Mike, all in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. 7.03, Special Education Annual Report. Mr. Zip.
Sorry. Thank you so much, All right, thank you so much, Dr. Vaughn. President Lumia, this is the yearly special education presentation. What we're going to do right now, since the board had the opportunity to take a look at the slides over the weekend, I'm going to go through the slides, give a brief description of what each one means. I think the most important slides are the last two, indicating where we were, what enhancements we've made to the program over the course of the last several years, and where we're going forward. So with that, I'm going to start the presentation. Once again, it's the yearly presentation. This is the committee. Director Mrs. Montoya isn't here tonight. We do have three in the audience. Mrs. Martinez. She's a new assistant director here at Boise Ketchum High School. Dr. Saraceno, assistant director at Myers in that district, and Mrs. Cruz, assistant director for Gay Head and Van Wyck Junior High School. The law has stayed the same. This is a slide that's been on here for the last 7 years. I haven't changed this. The whole point of special education. IDEA is a federal statute that defines special education in New York State that's been codified into the Part 200 regulations, and it's been in effect for decades. And the whole point of special education is to provide free and appropriate education to students with disabilities in the least restrictive environment to the greatest extent possible. I've taken these slides off of the current state data portal. You can access that down at the top. So not to go through them clearly, you have access to all of that. Just follow that web address. This is a slide of the population of Wappingers over the last several years as it compares to classification rate. Just as a point of reference, when you take a look at classification rate, it's not just students who come into our schools, it's all the students from my district who even go to out-of-district schools. So St. Columba, St. Mary's of Fishkill, they're all counted into the population when you're thinking about special education. This slide talks about classification categories over the last 3 years. It's pretty consistent. As you can see, there are 4 dominant classifications within special education. Learning disabilities tend to be the top one. Speech and language, other health impaired, which tends to be a classification where a student with ADHD would get services for. And on the bottom, the left-hand side would be autism. This is a slide taking a look at the least restrictive environment provision in the regs. And as you can see, this is fairly consistent over the last 2 years, based upon last year's data from the New York website, consistent over the last 5 years. So once again, most of our students are being educated within our district, and typically our ICT and/or research room programs. Graduation rate, this is 2 years ago, 120 students graduated from Wappingers, plus graduation rate was 71%, actually 73%, sorry, 13 points higher than the state average. You move forward to August of 21, we graduated 81%. If I'm reading that correctly, of our students. Once again, it's about 10 points higher than the state average. This slide's a really important slide too, because this is the impact that COVID has had on graduation, not just for students without IEPs, but students with IEPs. When everything changed in the 1920 school year, and for 2 years we had exempt regions status for students in the high school. As you can see, the number of classified students graduating with a regional diploma increased by 10%. And clearly that came from the students who would have normally graduated with a local diploma. So 10% of those students who would have earned scores within the safety net and would have graduated with a local diploma, due to the exempt status, were able to earn regional diplomas going to the 21 school year. This talks about referrals and classifications. I think the two key pieces here to take away is take a look at number of referrals to the committee for the last couple of years. I can't quite read it from here. I think it's 146 to 196, so there's been 50 additional students globally across the district have been referred to special ed, probably due to the impact of COVID, and it's got a corresponding increased number of classified students because of that. So once again, we've talked about the impact of COVID in school districts over the last 2.5 years, and I think this is what you're seeing right here. Suspension rate was low, partly due to the fact that we were hybrid last year, and Wednesday was a virtual day, and we had about 3,000 students who chose to stay, I think, full virtual for the whole year on. So clearly, this was not a factor going last year, and we're definitely under the state threshold as far as that was concerned. We're not discrepant, and we haven't been discrepant in any of these categories over the last 6 years. So I think that's a real testament to the work that we're doing here at Wappingers, which is great for a district to decide not to show up in one of these disproportionality categories is rare, and we've done so for the last 6 years. This is just an overlay of the programs across the buildings. I put things in bold to indicate some of the newer additions. There was one error in here, and I'll change it on the slide. I want to give it to Mrs. Page when we put it on the website. Gayhead does not have a resource room. So just so you know, that's an old, they used to have a resource room program in addition to the ICT, and that was an error as I put it together. So just wanted to point that out. And it's the same thing too regarding programs across the buildings K to 6, and then the programs across the buildings 7 to 12. This is the costs per special education student over the last 2 years. You can see there's been a slight decrease. I would say that's been attributed to students who in the past may not have had the ability to graduate with a diploma, given the exempt region status over the last 2 years, had that opportunity, given the fact that they're taking classes for credits, and that's probably where some of that breakage comes from, having some very high need students have that ability to leave school a year or two early, once again, and that would reduce the overall cost per student throughout the district. The diploma options for students have not changed. There's been a significant change for all students you see this year that the board should know about. For this June, going into August, next January, next June, I think the following August, the state has issued a special appeal, which all students can use, not just classified students. Anybody who scores a 50 to a 64 on any Regents exam, any number of Regents exams, they can appeal that for a successful passing mark, as long as they pass that class in question. So therefore, moving forward, we can have students who will apply for that special appeal, as long as they pass that class, and the building committee, made up of the principal, 3 teachers, and another administrator, feel as if the student's body of work was sufficient. They're going to grant them a passing score for that exam, but it could be for as many Regents as possible over the next couple of years. And I think that's also going to have a positive impact on the number of students who are going to graduate from our high schools, probably for the next 4 years. And this counts for students in 8th grade and honors classes as well. So everyone taking Regents exam, Like I said, for the next 2 years, or the next year and a half, have the ability for the special appeal. And these two credentials have been around for the last, I'd say 6 or 7 years too, and they have not changed as well. I think the big thing to talk about, and this is where I felt the real focus of the program, was to talk about where we've been. So just as a point of history to recap, I think it was in the 16-17, definitely by the 17-18 school year, we had the ICT build out across the buildings, created sister schools, something that was a result of the Tri-State program. And that happened about, like I said, I think as early as 16-17, if not by 17-18. In addition, I think we finished it last school year. We created another self-contained continuum at Fishkill to really support students in the southern tier. Prior to that, it was just open Evans that were complete continuums. So that was a great development to have down here in the south. I think in the 17-18 school year, we started the Orton Gillingham training for all of our AIS teachers and special ed teachers over the last 4 years. So I can say that we probably trained 50 teachers, if not more, in that methodology, which has been a big boost to improving students' skills in reading. Moving forward, we are going to extend the 2 self-contained programs at Myers. Typically, students would come into Myers with a self-contained K and a self-contained 1-2. And from that point, they would either go to Oak Grove or Evans. What we're going to do, and this goes back again to the number of referrals come to the committee, and the number of students who are going to be classified as a result of the increase in the referrals, is to create a feeder pattern for Myers into Fishkill Plains. So there'll be a second self-contained feeder pattern supporting the southern schools. So we'll have 2 supporting North Oak and Evans. We'll have 2 supporting the southern district, Fishkill, and Myers Fishkill Plains. Because Myers splits the district in half, some of those students would then funnel back into the Evans and or Oak. So that's going to be a program enhancement. Next year, we'll have 1 self-contained program there. And then the following year for 23-24, we'll add the additional class, and that would make another self-contained continuum. In addition, we are going to create Henry, a self-contained language-based class next year, a 3-4 and a 5-6, based upon the model of Gayhead. So now the North will have a class very similar to Gayhead. Teachers will have special training in, say, Orton Gillingham and or Wilson to address those students with severe reading disabilities, where the ICT program and additional support just wasn't good enough. And then they'll go to Kinnery. Those will be students from Bassett, Kinnery, Oak, Chief, or Evans, much on a similar model to Gayhead. And then as Dr. Bonnick indicated, last year we added 6 individuals to the budget, 2 school counselors, 2 social workers, 2 school psychologists, in addition to a CAPE counselor. That's in Van Wicken Junior High School. And with the 4 additional school social workers today, and the fact that this year we've increased school counselor at the high school level, each elementary school will have the addition of a 1.0 additional PPS staff going to the following school year, which is great. And at the secondary level, they've gained by a school counselor, 2 school psychologists, and a CAPE counselor. So clearly, supporting the needs of students from that health and well-being perspective is well underway. And I think that's it. Thank you. Questions? Comments?
Assistant Superintendent Zip, I would like to thank you and your entire department, the individuals that are here this evening. As many of you know, we are the 9th largest school district in New York State. We have a number of students, and it is important that we continue to focus on the needs of all of our students so that we're able to personalize their educational experience specific to them. Needless to say, it's a challenge, but it's a challenge that we're up to. And the changes that you've seen here are very deliberate changes. There were changes that needed to be made in order to provide the services that those students need. This is just the beginning. We will continue to look through and identify areas that maybe need to expand and maybe some that don't need to expand. And I would expect these occurrences to happen on a yearly basis based upon what our students need. So, Mr. Zip, I'd like to thank you for making these changes. All of the members of your department, thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Any question on the part of the board? Marie?
we knew this was coming anyway, it's me. I noticed that we did increase by about 50 students for the increase in our numbers. And we did address that it probably is from COVID. Does that include the 504s that are probably like anxiety and stuff? That's
No,
just.
so those 50 additional students that were a consequence of all the referrals, that's just initial referral to the district. That does not include any Section 504 plan. It also doesn't include any new entrants to the district who moved in here from other areas. That's just in-house referrals to the committee.
Which we have had I know anybody that's bought a house in the last year knows it's hard to find a house because as soon as it hits the market, it's sold. And I know that there is a lot moving in from down by the city and stuff. So I do know that those numbers are going. The Kimry program, that one's going to be able to vary on grades though, right?
3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay, so it
Just
will.
like in Gilead.
Yeah, it will, depending on which students need it at the time. Okay.
And it's meant to really just, once again, like the GATE program, take care of the northern tier and the southern tier.
Right.
So just so, because we do have in the GATE program students who come down potentially from Chief. That's a
Correct.
long trip, and once again, to have a program so isolated, it has other costs like busing and transportation.
I agree.
So to have a program like that supporting the district is a win-win overall.
If I can also speak to that, Trustee Johnson, we have certain programs that are at certain schools, and we want to try where we can to make those programs available at all of our schools. So our students do not have to travel. And as we see our numbers increasing and we look through basically our system, and we're able to identify those areas where we're able to expand, as we did here now to have another loop, we're certainly going to take the opportunity to do that because we don't want these students on a bus for any longer than they need to be. And I think it's important that they reside either in their neighborhood or as close as to it as possible.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Zip.
You're welcome.
8.01, consent agenda resolution. Does anyone want to remove any item from the consent agenda? Seeing none. Marie, you sure?
Resolved that the Board of Education does hereby approve the following consent agenda items as stated. 8.02, 8.03 and addendum, 8.04, 8.05, 8.06, 8.07, 8.08, 8.09, 8.10, 8.11, and 8.12.
Motion, Mike, second. Peggy, all in favor? Unanimous. Nine point oh one, approval of revised 22-23 school calendar.
Whereas the Board of Education adopted the 2022-2023 school calendar at their meeting of March 14th, 2022, whereas it has been determined that the 2022-2023 school calendar requires additional revisions. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Education does hereby amend the school calendar and adopts the 2022-2023 school calendar as revised.
Motion, Mike, second. Marie, all those in favor? Unanimous. 10.01, approval of professional learning plan.
Resolved, the Board of Education hereby approves the list of professional development plan committee members as detailed on page 4 of the plan, and be it further resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent, the Board of Education does hereby approve the Wappinger Central School District Professional Development Plan, PDP, as mandated by Commissioners Regulations 102.2 DD.
Motion, Mike, second. Becky, all those in favor? Unanimous. 10.02, approval of contract with DC BOCES, installment purchase agreement.
Resolved that the Wappinger Central School District approve a contract with the Dutchess County BOCES for the acquisition of computer technology hardware, software, and related equipment through a 4-year installment purchase agreement, IPA, commencing in the 2022-23 year with a maximum total principal cost of $250,000. And be it further resolved that the Wappinger Central School District will pay the Dutchess County BOCES through its regular monthly billing cycle over the 4-year period to commence during the 2022-23 school year. This IPA will include the replacement of aging network switches, 190 desktop computers, and the purchase of a new network server.
Motion, Marie, second. Peggy, discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. 10.03, approval of the school security advocacy letter.
Resolved that the Board of Education of the Wappinger Central School District is hereby approved the attached letter advocating for funding a school resource officer in every school as recommended by the Legislative Action Committee to be signed by the Superintendent of Schools, and is hereby authorized the Board President to sign the letter on behalf of the Board of Education.
Motion. Eddie, second. Mike, discussion? Marie?
I need to make an amendment to add in the CC, the Lower Hudson Council of School Superintendents.
Yeah, go ahead.
To add
I'll second that.
a CC on
All in
top.
favor of that addition?
I'll second that.
Okay, any other comments? Jim, Spencer?
Thank you, John. So first, thanks to the Legislative Action Committee for drafting the letter in response to this national problem. For those of you that were on the board and community members, I've been advocating for more school resource officers since I joined the board, and even before that as a community member. But I don't know if I like the way this letter is drafted. I just think that requesting funds for, I know what we do in Wappinger and how our SROs are a resource for our students. That's not the case in every school district around the country. So this letter, part of me says we should be speaking from a Wappinger, requesting from a Wappinger standpoint and not for everyone in the nation. Requesting funds for SROs in every school only addresses part of the solution. If it's not implemented properly, appropriately, it could produce negative, unintended consequences in some communities. I think that there should be like a national standard or accreditation for the school resource officer program, like how we do it in Wappinger, how I know that we do it in the community that I work in professionally in White Plains. Just putting officers in schools won't cut it. Some of these officers, these officers should be selected to represent the community and trained to be a resource, and I emphasize resource for young people. In many school districts, officers are used solely as disciplinarians, and that's not the way it should be done. So if the money flows for just putting cops in schools and it's not done the right way, that community member who spoke earlier is absolutely correct. It's gonna, facilitate the school to prison pipeline. I think that we need to, the officers need to be trained to identify, along with the school faculty, young people who are struggling socially, who are loners, who are outcasts, being picked on and bullied, and be equipped to provide them support and or refer them to get help. They should also identify, along with their colleagues from the sponsoring law enforcement agency, issues in the communities that impact students and impact what goes on in the school district, and act as a liaison for support and follow up in the school setting. Just putting cops in the school is just part of the solution. So if we're going to be asking this, first of all, I think we should be asking of the legislative body, the body that's going to be responsible for appropriating funds for this. This letter seems like we're addressing the president and not really addressing the problem, and I don't think that we should be doing that. I think if we're going to be asking, and not to appear to be partisan, we should be asking for more things. We should be asking for an increase in the legal age to obtain long guns. 21 is the legal age to possess a handgun, and it makes sense that you shouldn't be able to possess a high-capacity rifle until that age either. So we should be adding that to the list. We should be asking for legislation on red flags to prohibit ownership or control of weapons and extreme risk protection orders where certain behaviors would trigger court-mandated surrender of weapons and prohibit purchase of those weapons until the courts have been satisfied that there's no risk, right? We should also be considering a public ban on high-capacity offensive assault weapons for those not used in law enforcement. Weapons that are designed to kill en masse don't belong in safe communities. So if we're going to be asking for cops, we shouldn't just limit it to that. If we're going to ask, we should ask for many things. We need more funding to support efforts, the efforts that we have going on right here in Wappinger, providing mental health support for our students, faculty, and staff, especially after COVID, right? That's where money should be going to as well. We need to be asking for that. I'm pleased with the direction that our district is going under the leadership of Dr. Baum and all the committees that we have. We should seek assistance in those areas that we're already doing a good job in. We should include all of these asks because the problem has a complex solution which shouldn't be singularly focused. So that's my take on it. But in Wappinger, I do advocate more cops in schools.
Eddie?
So just a quick response, Trustee Spencer. One, we did send a letter to the governor advocating more funding for mental health in a separate letter. Some of the points you made earlier, I think they do make sense, but I think from a standpoint that you say, what the resource officer should be doing, the training and everything else, I think that becomes more of a protocol or a game plan that should be developed by the safety committee and senior staff, and not so much asking the federal government or the state, because each school district, and you know better than me, each school district, each area is going to have different needs, different responsibilities, and different things for the resource officers to do. I think possibly we do that as some type of in-house guideline as part of their training when we bring on those officers, or if we eventually do bring on officers, to the schools. I just don't know, it seems to be broad in general that we're asking the state or the federal government to include that as kind of, I just think there's different protocols and different, safety measures in different schools in different areas where I'm just saying that should be more of a local decision. I understand that that's the problem from that standpoint. So, and then the point being is that we need the money first in order to do this. So where is the money going to come from? Is it going to come from the federal government or is it going to come from the state? The letter does ask for both, the state and the federal government to provide this type of funding. I think it's a national problem. Granted, it's Wappinger's, but I think the reasoning behind making it, to advocate for all schools, is to kind of get the word out there that, all schools need to advocate for this. As much as we just want to worry about Wappingers, I just don't think it's just a Wappingers issue. I think it's an every school district issue. And we did talk about that within committee, but we just thought it would make more sense because of what's going on, across the country, that we make this a national issue and not just so much as a Wappingers issue, because it's not really an isolated incident. It's happening in Florida, it's happening in Texas, it's happening in different parts of the country. The other thing that we did.
Can I just explain? Sure. So Florida and Texas, you're right. Those two circumstances, police were either on scene or on scene very quickly. So, what I'm saying is we need a national standard. More importantly and we should only be speaking from, I don't know what's going on at that police department. Right. And I don't know what's going on in the one in Florida. I know what's going on up here because I'm in tune to how our school resource officers act in our schools and the job that they do. I'm on top of that. I ask questions. So when I'm saying it, I don't know, I don't like the way that.
I don't disagree. I just think we're just trying to, bring as a national attention, because it's an issue, and there's got to be a way to fix this, and fix that. And then the other last component about adding all those other, things with gun regulations, everything else, we did talk about that, but we kind of felt that was kind of outside of really what the focus of what we were trying to accomplish, and that's really to secure funding. And, once funding is in place, or there is a mechanism for funding in place, some of those other things could be addressed. We didn't want to make it too political one way, attacking Second Amendment, or, the fact that some of these weapons should not be, readily available, and the age of consent and when they should be purchased. Our main focus was really just on, we need the funding for this, and then hopefully those other things would fall into place for the decision making.
So this board shouldn't be partisan, and I'm sure that you were trying to remain nonpartisan.
We were focusing really on
This is part of the reason, this is why I'm saying that we should not be, it looks like we're addressing the president and not the issue. So we should probably rewrite it to address the issue.
Okay, we are all appalled at the repeated mass shootings at schools around the United States. Every crime requires a motive, opportunity, and means. We have tried to identify people with twisted motives by expanding mental health personnel. We are reducing opportunities for violence by adding SSOs, school safety officers, and SROs, school resource officers. My husband was a school psychologist, and I have relatives in law enforcement, so I know how essential these positions are. The top store in Buffalo had an armed security guard with 30 years' experience as a police officer. He shot at the killer to no avail because the murderer had body armor and an assault rifle. The officer was killed, and the murderer went free to kill many more people. At Uvalde in Texas, 19 armed police officers failed to storm the classrooms because, again, the murderer had an assault rifle and they were outgunned. My son-in-law hunts, and my husband used to hunt. I have friends who target shoot. Assault rifles are useless for hunting. They destroy the meat. If used for personal protection, the numerous shots and velocity endanger bystanders. Their sole purpose is as a weapon of war, to kill as many people as possible, as fast as possible. As well as addressing motives and opportunities, we need to confront means. I move to amend the letter to add, quote, the federal government also needs to place limits on acquiring assault weapons. Is there a second?
Motion for 10 more minutes.
No, I have a motion. I'd like to know if we get a second or not.
We have to get more time first.
Okay, I make 10 more minutes, please. All in favor? Unanimous. Peggy, continue with that motion, please.
Okay, I just said it. I moved, so we need a second.
Discussion?
Thank
All those in favor?
Repeat your motion again, please.
Okay. The federal government also,
Excuse me. This is an addenda to one of them.
it's an amendment, yes.
Amendment.
The federal government also needs to place limits on acquiring assault weapons. I move.
And I second.
Second. All those in favor of that, on that?
Where would you want to insert that?
The whole letter, I think the letter has to be somehow rephrased. I got some suggestions, but I think that's where it's gonna be put, let's worry about that later. All those in favor of the amendment, raise your hands, please. Okay, passes. Next.
Okay. Secondly, I have another amendment.
We have to announce who.
I need to know who said yes and no, that happened too quickly.
Oh, okay. In favor?
With the names,
Yes, give the names.
Mr. Morgan, Keith, myself, Peggy, Eddie, Mike. Unanimous? Okay, unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay, my second amendment is Funding should also include equipping the SROs with body armor and firepower equivalent or superior to that legally obtainable by potential killers.
Motion. Second. Anybody second?
Can you please read that again?
Okay, funding should also include equipping the SROs with body armor and firepower equivalent or superior to that legally obtainable by potential killers. In other words, they should, end of what I was saying, in other words, they should, the funding should also provide so that if the police need that in a situation, they will be able to go in and confront these people.
Any second? That fails. Any other amendments? I'd like to propose that some revisions to the letter itself. Instead of saying, "Dear Mr. President," I'd like to say, "Dear federal elected officials." On Tuesday, May 24th, rather than say "you address" and say "the President addressed," the rest of Unionville, Texas, and the nation regarding the most recent mass shooting in our school. Instead of "you," he used strong language in that speech, declaring that even the massacre, that the event of massacre, and asking how many scores of little children who witnessed what happened to see his friend die. The president, not you, the president also called for action. Eliminate the next step, but your approach only eliminate that. So the president also called for action. The next sentence should read to parents and school leaders are calling for help and securing the safety of our children and restoring their confidence that schools are a safe place to learn. Our children cannot learn if they do not feel safe in a school, and parents will not send their children into schools that feel are unsafe. Therefore, the Washington School District requires that the federal and state government provide the necessary full and permanent funding to specifically place a school resource officer in every school building across the nation. Looking at the statistics, we believe this is a necessary step. Rather than say "Mr. President," I would say in his address, the community at Uvalde underscore the residual trauma that affects our community after a mass shooting. It's not just the immediate community that is affected. Millions of students in family schools who identify with Uvalde, Texas community are anxious about the safety of America's schools. History has shown the rest of it goes okay. So the only change to make is what I suggest. I don't know if people agree with that or not, but the rest of the sentence are fine. So again, the very first sentence, dear federal elected officials, and not the president. The president does not control funding. Congress, the Senate, and the House control the funding. So it seems to me that telling the president to do this is crazy. So in my opinion, dear federal elected officials, get rid of the word "you." Again, the first sentence, May 24th, the president addressed. The second sentence, rather than "you" addressing the president, he used strong language. And at the battlefield, the president also called for action, eliminate the rest of the sentence there. And then the second paragraph, second line, instead of saying "Mr. President," say "it is addressed to the community." Uvalde, underscored, get rid of the word "your words" on the day of the shooting. Get rid of that, underscore the residual trauma and so forth. That's a recommendation I make.
Second.
I just have one thing to add, Mr. Louis. Sure. If you look at our CCs, we do have state representatives, so I would just ask, instead of just dear federal elected, to have dear federal and state elected.
That's fine.
officials.
And federal and New York State?
Because they're on,
Federal and New York State.
I'm sorry, federal
Yeah, federal
and,
and New
sorry,
York State,
thanks,
that's
John,
fine.
federal and New York State, because we do have the governor and we do
That's
have
fine.
our
That's fine.
legislatures on here.
I agree with that. I mean, it's,
Okay.
and let's do that first. The motion,
Didn't you move? Wasn't that your motion? Okay, then I should second it.
all in favor? It's just minor changes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You're addressing, rather than addressing the president himself, we have to address people who have control of funding. So everything just the president, I don't think this. Before we take a vote, I guess.
Motion, 5 more minutes.
Motion for 5 more minutes.
I would,
Second, all those in favor? Yes, unanimous.
President Lumia, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this topic, because I think you can tell I'm very passionate about it. Over the past few days, I took the opportunity to come up with a correspondence that I think you may consider. Ms. Pedro, would you happen to have access to the correspondence that I was able to?
Just in a few minutes. Yes.
Okay. All I would ask is that the board consider it, and if the board is accepting of it, certainly feel free to take it. If you're not, that's fine, and you want to go in a different direction, that's fine as well. What I'd like to share with you is, my concern is, I don't want to get into a political discussion as to what should and shouldn't be in the letter. As Trustee Spencer, who is a highly regarded law enforcement official who I respect very much, as he indicated, he is aware as to how the school resource officer program functions here in the Wappinger Central School District. We have trained deputy sheriffs who have to go through a training program in order to work as a school resource officer. We also have them in the town of East Fishkill. They also need to complete a training. These individuals also utilize our buildings for training operatives over the course of the summer, so they get a better feeling as to our buildings and what our buildings entail, so that in the event that they have to deal with an armed intruder, they're prepared to do that. They would be a uniformed police officer who is armed and who would be in regular contact with their local law enforcement agency. What I am not recommending is that someone who does not have an affiliation with a law enforcement agency, but may be a retired professional, has the opportunity to come in here with a weapon. That is not what I'm recommending. I believe that it needs to be very therapeutic, and these individuals need to have a connection to our community, to law enforcement, and to the school district. And this year, we have successfully completed school safety presentations at all of our secondary schools. We began this, Assistant Superintendent Lokema, about 2.5 months ago. These presentations included all of our students as well as representatives from the district office and law enforcement, to basically speak about what our expectations were from our students and what they could expect from us. I indicated to them that their safety and security is our top priority, and they needed to work along with us to ensure that it was their top priority as well. So I don't know is that the letter? I don't have it. So I can read this letter for what it's worth. I at least can share with you what's on my mind at this point as a superintendent of a school district with over 10,000 students and 2,000 employees. So if I could take an opportunity to read that, would that be acceptable?
That's fine.
Is that okay with the board? Thank you.
Thank you, Tristan.
Take the one.
Thank you, Trustee Morgan. And again, this is just a suggestion from where I stand. Dear members of the United States Congress and Senate, as superintendent of schools in the Wappinger Central School District, which is the 9th largest in New York State, with over 10,000 students and 15 school buildings, I am writing this letter of correspondence to urge that federal funding be made available immediately to assign a school resource officer at school buildings throughout our country. The addition of such positions that are federally funded is necessary as our country grapples with the school violence that has plagued school districts and has resulted in injuries and the loss of life. Unfortunately, the horrific events of what transpired in Uvalde, Texas, has created much anxiety for the families, students, and staff in my school district. Clearly, much discussion will occur at the federal level regarding the best ways to keep students and staff safe. An armed uniformed school resource officer who works as a state or county or local police department will be one way in which immediate steps can be taken to begin to address this major concern. Our school district has worked collaboratively with the 6 municipal police departments in our district, which include the New York State Police, Dutchess County Sheriff's Office, Town of East Fishkill, Town of Fishkill, Village of Fishkill, and Town of Poughkeepsie Police. And having them in our schools would be a benefit to the safety of all. In the absence of federal funding, many school districts may be forced to pay for such needed safety through their own school budget. As we have 15 schools, this will result in a cost of approximately $1.5 million for our district. I am hopeful that federal funding will be made available, as the ability to have a school resource officer in each school building should not be based on whether each local school district has the ability to expend resources on such. Everyone, regardless of the wealth of each school district, deserves the safest school environment possible where learning can occur on a daily basis. Thank you very much for taking the time to review this correspondence. And then there are other individuals that are CC'd, but that's the gist of where my mind is, and I wanted to share that with you. If you think there's some of it you like, fine. If you think there's some of it that you don't like, that's fine too. But I felt the need to share it with you because I believe that the sooner that we begin to advocate for this, the better chance that we have some type of a response from our federal government before we start school in September. Thank you.
I think the letter is an excellent letter, but I think we have to consider the amendment that, what do you call it? I thought, Eddie, a minute. The amendment, she made an amendment which could be added to that letter. So how many people are in favor? The letter is excellent. How many people are in favor of the amendment that was already added that to be added to that particular letter?
Okay, I will read it again. Okay. All right. The federal government also needs to place limits on acquiring assault weapons.
Well, I just,
That amendment was already
Yeah.
adopted.
Well, I know, but the question is, we can go with the superintendent's letter, which is an excellent letter. In addition to that letter, the amendment goes along with the letter.
Mr. President, why can't we submit both letters? Why can't the board submit a letter and the superintendent submit a
That's
letter?
acceptable too, that's fine too.
Because it's coming from two different perspectives.
I agree, I think it's excellent.
I think his letter
I think
is
the
excellent.
superintendent's letter stands as itself. The second letter, the board.
I believe his letter should stand as itself, and if the board is willing, we've already passed one motion amendment to tweak. I don't have any issues with your recommendations. We could approve that to tweak. We can send a board letter and a superintendent letter. I would have no objection to that.
How many people in favor of sending 2 letters? Please raise your hands.
Well, let's do it right.
I'm sorry.
Don't we have a motion on the changes that you suggested that we need to deal with? That Dr. Bonk offered his letter as part of the discussion on that. I think we need to resolve that before we get into.
How many people are in favor of Dr. Bonk?
No, we have to start with your.
My letter finish yet?
Your amendments.
I've made some recommendations, some changes. Yes. How many people, how many in favor of those recommendations?
There was one more U in there.
Oh, one more U. There's one more U. Marie, you're better than I am. Which one?
I'm sorry. It says, it's right after as the 9th largest school district, that sentence. The next one is, we ask that you along with Congress.
We ask that
You're about
change it to-
2/3 of the way down on page 1.
Yes.
Yeah. It would be, we ask that Congress along with Department of Homeland.
Yeah, we ask that.
Yes.
Congress, yes.
Does
Very
that
good.
make more sense?
Got that, you got that, Alberta? All right, all those in favor of that particular, my particular motion, raise your hand, please. Unanimous. So therefore, we, now with the superintendent's letter.
No,
We don't have to vote.
Approve our letter first,
Fine.
and we can do a Dr. Bonk.
We have to approve our letter as amended, John.
We're gonna say 2 letters. That's a bond.
We have to make a motion, you make the motion to approve the letter with.
As amended.
As amended.
Oh,
Yes.
that's right, that's
Okay.
right.
Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the letter as amended.
Second.
I'll second. All those in favor? Unanimous.
I would like to make a motion to also send Dr. Bonk's letter as well. So I'd like to make a motion that we send 2 letters, one from the board and one from Dr. Bonk.
Second, Mike, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank God.
Mr. President, can I just Can I just ask the Legislative Action Committee to, in the next session, to consider the things that were discussed today in additional letters?
When we prepare the reorg and over the summer, when we prepare the charter, we will put that in as a topic. And we can always send an additional follow-up letter. No problem with that. Also, Mr. President.
Can you email me those suggestions so that I have them in my notes for next year?
Yes, ma'am. Perhaps at the next reorg meeting, perhaps a police officer should be on that particular committee to get a fantastic perspective.
Perhaps.
So not perhaps, it will be.
If I get a moment, Mr.
Hey, go ahead.
One moment, Mr. Louis. First, I'd like to just acknowledge this came about rather quickly, again, within a short period of time, less than 48 hours. I know normally I always say I drafted a letter and then the committee tweaked it. I have to reverse myself on this because both Trustee Johnson and Trustee-elect Miggets jumped all over this rather quickly and prepared an immediate draft overnight. Then it was discussed, and then we had scheduled a meeting, which you and I both participated in as well. So we ended up doing some of the tweaking. So I just want to acknowledge their efforts. There was a lot of research that went into this. If you look at the exhibits, Ms. Johnson did spend a lot of time on the internet, pulling up a lot of resources to add as an exhibit, as well as the work that Trustee-elect Miggets did. So I just want to give them the proper acknowledgement as things kind of went a different way, because normally, as I said, I usually do a rough draft and then they correct me and tweak me. This particular time, they kind of jumped on this rather quickly as soon as Dr. Bonk had issued his weekly educational update. They had seen it before I had seen it, and they were already working and texting me about it before I even had a chance to do anything. So I want to give them the proper accolades for jumping all over this. So thank you both.
I'd like to second those accolades. And Marie, thank you, and Mr. Miggets, thank you very much for all the work that you guys did on this particular letter.
Also, one last thing, excellent suggestions and recommendations by Trustee Spencer, and your area of expertise for this is obviously makes a lot of sense. And also Trustee Kellen bringing in a couple extra usual things you do from that standpoint. And I want to thank you. You didn't spend a lot of time making grammatical corrections on this. So I think we did a really good job this time around.
Okay, 10.04, first reading of policies. Once again, if anyone in the community has any questions on those policies, please address them to Ms. Kellen, who's the chairman of the policy committee. 11.01. Board members may request additional agenda items. Any addition to the agenda?
I don't want to add anything to the agenda. I think we forgot to mention something in the spotlight.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to, as an academic institution that we are, we identify and learn daily from different students, people in the community. And I just wanted to spotlight Pride Month, the month of June. And, we have to represent everyone in the Wapaja Central School District. So again, Pride Month for the month of June. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith. On 12.01, comments from the public on any item you want to address. We'll see none. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second, Marie. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.